Hi, Bloody Recapped here. Today I'm going to explain movie called Little Nicky. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, because we are on our way to our goal of 6,000 subscribers. Not hard for you, and for us it's support. The movie begins with a lustful man watching from a tree for a hot mommy, but the viewing is interrupted by her son. The man immediately calls the phone and asks the boy to leave, but the lady notices the man trying to pretend to be a big bird, and in the next moment the boy launches a rock into the forehead of this rascal. However, it does not land on the ground, but straight into hell, where the judge orders the real birds to mock the scoundrel. And while the torture of bad people was going on all around, one of the sons of the devil, Nicky, was listening to the rock in his room. His peace was interrupted by Jimmy the servant, who invited the boy to his father's banquet, at which he would tell who would rule the underworld for the next 10,000 years, for tomorrow he was retiring. Nicky doesn't believe he can be taken, but Jimmy asks him to look at his portrait to find his strength, but alas, Nicky reminds him that one of his brothers hit him with a shovel and now he is like this, but he went to the banquet. There the brothers were playing a kind of dance, so to speak, and when Nicky appears, the older brother Cassius hypnotizes his brother and forces him to beat himself, but his father stops his torment and teaches the older brother a lesson. Once seated at the throne room, Jimmy reminds him to shove a pineapple up Hitler's ass at 4 o'clock. Returning to his sons, he solemnly declares that the throne for the next 10,000 years will occupy himself, because his sons are not ready for such responsibility. And when everybody disperses, there appears Hitler, who chooses a bigger pineapple, and the devil helps him a little with this. And Cassius and Adrian, in revenge for his father, decide to have their own hell on earth, so they escape through the flames and freeze him out. When the judge reports this to the devil, he forms a woman's breasts on his head and sends him to his father, who wanted to have a little fun. At the gate, they decide that Nicky must be sent to Earth because his father has begun the process of decay. He gives his son a flask from which he must get his brothers drunk and return them to the underworld, and Jimmy asks him to hurry, for his father has no more than a week left. Nicky rises from the ground, but he has a bit of bad luck because he got out on the subway track, so he's back in hell again. On his second attempt, a dog with a sign for Nicky is waiting for him, asking him to get out and follow him. The dog warns that brothers can possess people, so they need to be careful, and on the street they meet a blind possessed man who smells the devil and runs away. The talking dog decides to help Nicky a little, so he dresses him up and feeds him, but he and his powerful artifact get hit by a bus and find themselves in hell, catching the creature pawing the judge's chest on his head, who by the way has acquired a nice bra. They agree that the judge needs to keep quiet about his arrival, and Nicky about their incident. Back on Earth, the dog admits that the money his father gave him for an apartment he spent on his earthly amusements. That's why he needs to live in another apartment, but not alone. At the apartment, he meets Todd, who tells him that he has to pay $600 and that he has rehearsals on Tuesday and Thursday, so he is not allowed to enter the living room. Oh, and another rule, dogs are not allowed in the apartment, so the doggy sweetly pees on their rug. Nicky slept on the radiator and snored like the devil, which of course Todd couldn't help but hear. And the next day at church, the Holy Father spoke standing on hot pizza and imploring people that God wasn't helping them in any way. The mayor, who came in tinfoil instead of shoes, finally let us know that it was Cassius and Adrian who had taken possession of powerful people and ordered people to sin for their souls. Nicky, meanwhile, is going to find his brothers through trial and error, but only gets punched in the face by the townspeople and ends up back in hell from the clutches of a polar bear, where again the judge and the hairy man have fun with his nipples. On the ground, however, he is already tired of looking for his brothers and falls asleep in the park, scattering all the animals and crowding people around him with his snoring.
I will eat your heart.
One, however, managed to steal our devil's flask and wing, only to be noticed by two cheerful devil worshippers who are delighted at the devil's arrival on Earth. After all, he showed his abilities right in front of them and went in pursuit of the thief. He found him at the local bazaar, but he was not going to return anything, so the girl interceded for Nicky and threatened the police, which forced the thief to return the flask. The guys got to know each other better, and Valerie's girlfriend offered him an ice cream treat, where they meet the possessed blind man again, and Nicky tells them that he lives in an apartment and his dog is in the middle of making inquiries.
And I love you.
Insertion, by the way, Valerie goes to design school, but Nicky was very interested in her smell, and he was not shy to taste her. He even admitted to her that he had a certain butterfly sensation in his stomach. And while the judge in hell is expanding his set of bras and chatting with the ex-devil, on Earth it turns out that the mayor has allowed everyone from the age of 10 to drink alcohol. Adrian was watching the drunk kids nearby and noticed Nikki with a girl, so he gets his brother to send her away and give him the middle finger, but when Nikki tries to talk his brother into going back, he drives him under a garbage truck, causing the Devil Fanatics to bathe in the devil's blood. Once in their apartment, he and the dog were watching TV, where the news reported that the new slogan for New York would be,
"I love hookers" will now be the city's catchphrase.
The dog realized that the balance of good and evil was finally thrown off balance. That's why he got Nikki to turn his neighbor's can of Coke into another liquid, like scum's blood or moose piss. But when the neighbor returns, the dog runs off the couch, and after taking his Coke, says it's Pepsi.
Coke into a Pepsi. That was your big transformation?
The dog is unhappy with this result, causing Nikki to freak out and accidentally blow up his neighbor's TV. He asks to watch the match in the living room, but the referee too obviously judges one of the teams, and then makes them bang on the referee's table. Nikki realizes it's his brother and heads out to grab him. There was enough fun at the game.
What made you want to come and see the Globetrotters today, son?
I came for the beer and the bitches.
Insert, but when Nikki went out to make a lucky shot to reward everyone with a portion of pizza, he accidentally blew the first ball, but the second one flew right into the ring, but he was stopped by Cassius and forced into a basketball duel. He added a lot of his devilish strength during the game, but a beautiful slam dunk was executed, and Cassius was tricked into a flask.
Now that was some straight-up David Copperfield shit.
Insert back home, Todd already knew about the talking dog and that Nikki was the son of the devil, so they threw a party and ate pie and chicken, and Nikki showed people tricks with his neck. At the same party, Todd began to be suspected of being homosexual. Insert.
You want? I have an extra futon in the bedroom.
That's a big pass, Elton John.
And Nikki admitted that he probably fell in love with the girl Adrian made him send. Everyone breaks up and the dog falls asleep, but it seems he was sent from heaven if he snores like that.
La 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 la.
Insertion, and Todd suggests that Nikki go to Valerie's. He arrives at her school, but catches a man dreaming of being a girl and his lover 2 floors up. But when he tries to kiss the glass, she notices him and opens the window and douses him with pepper spray. Nikki falls down, but at the very ground she stops and soars upward, again looking in on our SOSO girl. He then swims closer to her and the girl slaps him in the face for his behavior, but he doesn't back down and confesses that his devil father asked him to help catch the brothers, one of whom made him insult her that time. The girl gives him her hand, but he offers her a little flight over the city, where the possessed smells Nikki again and calls him Valerie's harlot, for which he gets it right away. The next morning begins not with coffee, but with news of a $50 million reward for whoever catches this serial killer, who the mayor tells her about and is standing on something hot at the same time. And as Nikki happily strolled through town, he was recognized from the news and a chase ensued, which also involved people in wheelchairs, but they ultimately failed to manage the controls. The townspeople chased Nikki into an alley, but he decided to use his powers and split into small pieces, turning into a dozen spiders. This is how he gets home and is about to turn back into a human being and sees that a cheap montage of Nikki's face has been attached to a Tawny Montana movie on TV to increase the bounty on his head. The next moment his friends show up at the apartment and he asks to kill him to ask his father for advice, but the blow to the tabletop is painful, but not fatal. Suddenly Todd offers to fulfill his dream of drowning someone in his own bathtub, but in the underworld, at the sight of his own father with no body parts, he rushes back to save his father. But it turns out that the demon fanatics betrayed Nikki for a suitcase with $25 million, but Todd and the dog were at the scene of their meeting, so only they were detained. The police chief stayed in the subway with the millionaires and showed a trick in which Adrian got out of the policeman's body and started waiting for his brother. At this time a stranger came up to the friends and offered them a drink, but they chased her away and it turned out to be Valerie. The boys took a sip of peppermint schnapps, which was Adrian's favorite drink, but approaching the container in the packet, Adrian almost takes a sip, but stops and realizes that he was meant to be trapped forever, so he forces Nikki to leave the body of one of the guys. Adrian is aware of Cassius, but decides to remain the sole ruler and asks Nikki to get into the flask. At the same time, the dog pees sleeping gas and escapes from the cops. Adrian, on the other hand, grabs Valerie to make sure Nikki obeys him and climbs into the flask. But suddenly the dog appears and shoots a harpoon from his apparatus, which helps Valerie escape but falls down. Nikki helps her, however, but gets hit by a train himself and his brother. Adrian immediately heads to his father's remains to find out where Nikki is. At the same time, his brother suddenly enters heaven and tells one of the angels that his brothers told him that his mother is a goat, which is why he smells so bad from his mouth. But here is this young beautiful girl suddenly saying that he is her son, and so young she is because angels do not get old. In hell, the news is no less interesting. Adrian tosses his father away from the throne and takes his place, thus encouraging him to grow horns of his own. Nikki was sweet-talking his mother, who referred to his father as a spunky lover, so she immediately got a call from one of her friends who was interested in Nikki. However, their all-seeing eye in the sky showed the news where hell had formed in the middle of the park. Demons were beginning to get out from under the ground, but people were coming there to have fun. Adrian suspends all of Nikki's friends above the lava for his own amusement, and the rest of the people die in about 15 minutes. His mother asks her son to use his inner light and gives him a thing that was once given to her by a god, and it will definitely help him. So once on Earth, Nikki uses the rainbow to make the demons rejoice in even the smallest little things like cute bunnies and pointy wings. However, coming to his brother, he wipes out one of the demons and they escape, leaving Nikki alone. In the final fight, they showed off their strength, and Nikki was even helped by her mother from heaven, because after Adrian hit him, she set him up with a soft bed insert. Eventually, Adrian is about to close Nikki in a flask, but he grabs him and pulls him down with him. And there is a brutal fight in the flask from which Nikki emerges victorious, but after a kiss it turns out to be Adrian, who turns into a bat and prepares to destroy everyone. But the real Nikki emerges from the flask and releases Ozzy Osbourne himself in angelic garb, who happily defeats Adrian and locks him in the flask. Valerie kills Nikki with a stone to finally defeat him and return with the flask to his father, who has literally risen out of thin air. And the father offers his son to live off the earth to be in the middle, for the mother he still loves has ascended and the father is in hell. So let him defend his love on earth.
No hole!
A year later, it turns out that Valerie and Nikki have been left to live on Earth, and with an accidental blow with a shovel, Valerie has flattened Nikki's face, and their son Zacharias has been kicked out of daycare for turning milk into moose piss. Todd opened his theater, but only this man came in. The dog got drunk at a strip club where he got kicked out and met his old girlfriend Heather, whom he managed to get married to, and their children are a separate creation of the devil. Mom and dad ended up not being able to repair the relationship and they found other lovers. These buddies bought themselves an airplane, but ended up crashing drunk. Never in their lives were they so happy in hell.